Thank you very much for having me.
Don't thank me yet.
You have the right to.
Yeah, I just saw your tag expired.
Because it's in a TV.
Do you have a single fact to back that up?
You know, this is the one where
Think you're funny?
you understand me? I think you need to go get a dictionary.
Welcome.
Oh, we're actually on.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just playing with dials and setting it
Dolls
up still.
or dials?
Dials.
Oh. No,
Oh,
this is it.
well,
it's
time like really
literally
flew
on
by
you.
then. Because normally when you sit down there, you're like monkeying around with that panel there for what seems like an eternity. But
Well, is it okay for me to get better?
I
at
guess
it?
an eternity went by while I was sitting here.
Gosh.
I didn't even notice. It just seems like I guess we're getting faster at this.
Yeah. It's a little bit more streamlined compared to what it used to be in a sense.
Yeah.
And it will become more streamlined as we go. So
I'm always like, when I watch these podcasts back, sometimes I observe myself like picking up this coffee, like my
doing nothing with it.
like my hand picks it up like this,
right.
like my wrist bends all down and picks it up all like prim and proper, like
right.
a princess. And just,
like a princess.
just pop it open, and then like my giraffe neck, like just instead of bringing the coffee cup to my lips, I just like giraffe my neck out and just go look
And be and really, really creepy about
and look
it.
like some kind of lizard drinking this coffee during a
that's-
podcast.
That's disgusting.
So let me just go through the whole motion and put a wide on there.
It's already done.
So I'll be looking. I'll grab my coffee like this. You'll be talking, and I'll just be like.
That's ridiculous. Why?
I don't do.
Is it like theatrics? Is that
No.
what it is?
No, that's the sad part. Is it's genuine. It's how I genuinely have been picking up the coffee and drinking it.
I don't think anything.
I
about
just
that
look
is
like
genuine, but
some lizard person. I drink my coffee very genuinely, sir.
okay. Well, talk about what we're going to talk about so I can share a post real quick.
Well, we just got done watching Die Hard.
Die Hard.
The very first Die Hard. And you have titled the podcast, Is This a Christmas Movie?
Review.
Is this a Christmas movie review?
Yep.
Well, it's a movie review.
It's a movie review. Also, we will attempt to say
We'll talk about the Christmas aspect because this movie never comes up without also the Christmas. Is this a Christmas movie argument?
right.
Rearing its head every single time. So why don't we just embrace it? We'll talk about if it's a Christmas movie or not.
Right.
Because why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we just got done watching it, and you just made the comment like, "Gee, how long was that movie? Like 2 hours?"
Right.
And I was like, "Well, at least." And you're like, "Oh, gee, it seemed like even more than that." Well, let me look at the runtime.
What do you think? I'm upset about it?
Well, I didn't say that, but normally when someone says that felt really long, they were bored.
Right.
That's the general consensus. Why do they always put the information you want to know really teeny tiny? 132 minutes. So there you go.
So 2 hours
Ugh.
and 10, give or take, credits.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Is that? Do they include credits in that when they put
In
a
the
runtime?
total runtime, I would assume so.
That's an easy lookup, but I've never looked it up actually.
Wow. I'm almost done.
On the back of Blu-ray and DVD boxes, what's that runtime? Does that include the credits? Probably, because now, like, since half the movies that come out now are Marvel movies, and at
Right.
the end of every one of those credits, there's scenes. They probably are like, well, we definitely got to consider it the whole thing
Right.
a movie now. Still got scenes running after the credits.
Right. So before I get into my list,
Alex
what do you think?
makes notes on his phone while watching a movie. which he did with Die Hard.
I do with every
don't
one of
know.
our movie reviews so far.
I don't know what his notes are.
Well, it's
I
just
don't take
so.
notes.
Listen, if I don't keep notes, there's no way I'm going to be able to articulate my thoughts from the movie even minutes afterwards. Like, our whole shtick with this is we watch the movie, set up, and podcast immediately. In that time, I will not be able to articulate correctly what I was thinking at the moment. So I just jot down like little, like one-liner things so I can be like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah,
So
because I'm normally the guy that's seen the movie like 5 or 6 or 100 times. and
now
it's-
I have seen Die Hard before.
yeah,
It's not like I came into this completely blind, but
I would
I'm-
ask, how'd you get through this life without seeing Die Hard? I think it came out on your birth year.
yeah. Didn't we look it up last podcast? It was like June something. When
It's
it was
80.
released?
It's 88. You were 89.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay.
Um,
While you were forming in the
stirring
womb.
in the womb.
Yep. This movie was being shot and released
Right.
while you were cooking, while you were a bun in the oven. So what should we say first about this movie? First of all,
Well-
like there's already a million reviews on this movie and everyone's already talked it to exhaustion.
Right.
But it's one of those ones that it kind of sets the bar for action movies in a lot of people's mind.
Yep.
But you know, since Die Hard, I mean, there's how many terrorists take over this building or this boat or this plane movies have we had, and Mr. Action Hero has to come in and take them all out and save the hostages.
Right.
I mean, now we've seen that 100 trillion times.
Yeah. A little. Well, not that it's getting old in a way. It's just like we've seen it. It's hard to say we haven't at this point. you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I still love those movies. I still
Right.
love this movie.
So go ahead, and without trying to be too like fanboy over it, do your best version of I've never seen this before and this is my review.
Well, what I always like about Die Hard is it has really good focus. Like I like movies that take place all in one place,
Yeah.
not necessarily all one room.
Yep.
But in this case, the whole movie, for the most part, takes place all in one building, so it's very focused in that, and it's
not all over the place.
yeah, you can hang on to a premise like that pretty easily.
Right.
It's not one of those movies that cuts around to different parts of the world every 3 minutes and gives you some really quick text on screen to say what country you're in a
Right.
drone shot
Right.
before just cutting to some other set somewhere. Like I loved its focus, and I loved how as the movie went on, the situation just kept getting worse and more intense.
And a little bit more ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm sure you'll get all into the ridiculousness of it.
Not as much as you
But-
think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's got its weaknesses, I'm
Yeah.
sure. You know, and we'll touch on those. We're not just because it's Die Hard, we're not gonna just love all over it and not say anything
Right.
negative or critiquing about it. But going through it, probably the 100th time I've seen it. Yeah, that's something I really took notice of. It's just how focused it is and how the intensity ramps up from beginning to end. It's always building. The situation is always escalating. You can see like
Right.
the production value is raising.
Yep.
With each and every scene, the stakes are increasing.
Right.
I think it's paced really well. I think it's got 6 or 8 like characters that are given a pretty hefty amount of screen time. Like it's got like its staple characters.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and the 6 or 8 of them, like it focuses on them real good, and then it's got some
Focuses on them real good.
yeah, like you got the John McClane, the hero. You got a good villain. You got a good sub boss villain.
Right.
You got his wife, like the main hostage. You got the dickhead cop. You got the buddy cop. You got the asshole reporter.
Right.
You got that sleaze bag that's doing coke all the time.
Yep.
So I guess what I'm attempting to say here is it's with these 6 to 8 characters. It's just some movies like they focus really well on those 6 to 8 and they all kind of tie it together, the whole
Yeah.
the whole screenplay.
Right.
So I thought it did well with its characters. What I'm attempting to say.
Yeah.
I'm trying to throw all the good onto the table first.
I don't know why you think I'm gonna like try to butcher it.
Oh well, it's just kind of your
fine.
style sometimes.
No, I attempt to look at it as much through the lens of like, okay, what where's this at podcast? Just kind of like, okay, if I was directing this movie or if I actually wanted it, like if I wanted to actually critique it, what are like the flaws? So that's how I attempt to look at it, whether I like the movie or not. Every movie is flawed to some extent. So that's where, I just try to look at it through that lens.
Yeah.
And of course I can enjoy a lot
And
of movies.
I tried to watch it that way this time too. Like, okay, seen this so many times. This
Right.
time let's like really dig into this thing and see if we can give it some critiques
Yeah.
as we go about.
Right.
I'm gonna enjoy it regardless.
Yeah.
All the way through, no matter what perspective viewpoint I wanna throw at it.
Right.
But anyway, with that being said, what was your general takeaway?
So let me do one thing really, really quickly.
He's doing something really quickly in his notes. I never know what it is.
Really quickly.
But yeah, this like movies that are like Die Hard that instantly come to mind is like Under Siege. Our boy Steven Seagal doing his thing.
So ridiculous. Okay. So first thing I have to talk about was something like unbelievably weird that I noticed throughout the movie. Not that any of it was a bad thing. I just think they did it rather well. They did it, I think, twice in the opening scene. Opening scenes, I'm sure multiple times that I missed. And then specifically one in the it was right after he ran across the spoilers. He ran across.
If you haven't seen Die Hard, oh my God.
I'm just picking.
What are you doing listening to Alchemy Point podcast reviews? Die Hard, is it a Christmas movie?
So it was right after he ran across the floor with all the glass.
So towards the end of the movie.
Yeah. So there was a couple times they did it at the beginning, like very beginning, like I think while he was on the plane and right afterwards. And all it was I was just like, that's an interesting technique if this is what they were going for as like writer, director, producer. They used like over highlighted or like blown out shots, but only in very specific things. I can't remember what the plane one was. And then like right after he gets off the plane, it's the girl that runs past him in all white. And the white, like she's wearing white shirt, white pants, and it's like blown out. And then when he runs across the glass at the end of the movie, he has his head like up against the mirror and like all the light is just like violent compared to the rest of the movie. And like, so there's just like really specific things or scenes that they use like very specific things to like contrast like almost the entire rest of the movie. And I just thought it was interesting.
Oh, what do you? So certain scenes, where
like the
the
movie,
lighting was really.
it was different. It wasn't all of the lighting, it was the whites, the highlights.
Okay.
So like a lot of the
Could-
movie was like more of like a dark or mid-level, I would say, brightness. It wasn't too dark, not too bright, but then there would just be like really random stuff. It was like when the guy was after him and turned all the lights on that floor, like everything like got kicked up to like a different brightness. I don't know. It was just something I noticed and was kind of like, that's interesting. Not
Oh,
that it
well-
weighs it on anything.
Oh, well, the lighting was never anything that like I noticed or distracted or
It wasn't the entire lighting. It was just highlights. It wasn't distracting by any means.
okay. Well, I mean, I didn't.
I'm
No.
not picking on it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
If-
I mean,
if it was
it's
intentional.
it's a competently lit movie. Yeah, I'll give it that.
No,
like-
not all of the lighting. It had nothing to do with the lights.
Well,
just
the exposure.
no, it was specific things in those shots. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't the entirety of lighting. There was very specific things that were like supposed to like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like
What,
I
like
could,
certain things in the frame like would draw attention to itself because it was highlighted differently.
yeah, with like as a like the rest of the scene was like colored normally, and then that one thing or like a couple things were like very highlighted or blown out that almost went against the scene. It wasn't
Oh, okay.
it wasn't like, oh, the sky's blown out, they didn't expose that correctly. It was like everything's like correct, and then there's just like something that is like overexposed or like highlighted in a way. That's all. I think you don't understand what I'm saying, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, having a hard time here.
um
I mean, it was something you caught on to that.
Yeah. And I might be
obviously
like
I-
overthinking it. It's just like
I
something I
didn't.
haven't noticed that much, I guess. Because it was like specifically the scene where that girl runs past him and he looks back and he's like, oh, California.
She like hugs that dude
Yeah,
behind
her
him.
boyfriend or whatever. And
Was it like her pants were lit up real good?
no, she was wearing all white. That's what I'm saying. So like she was like the contrast in the entirety of the scene, and then the whiteness of her clothes were like highlighted or like peaked in a way, but nothing else seemed overexposed. That's all I'm saying. I just think they did it correctly. Like if you're drawing attention to something, I just think it was nice.
Oh,
That's all.
okay. I had no idea where you were going with any of that, but
I mean, literally
guess
what I said.
I guess I see it now. Yeah, they definitely wanted you to see that girl run into hug her
No.
boyfriend at the airport.
No, and then there was a couple other things like that too, that it's just the shots were not like the norm throughout the rest of the movie. That's all.
Like, what was another example where it didn't feel like the norm?
I can't remember there was something before the plane or before that girl, like on the plane or something like that. And then in the bathroom scene specifically, this is why it's weird to me, because they didn't do it like throughout the movie. Like it was like some recurring thing. It was just like really random times where like something highlight or like of highlight was there, and it was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool.
They dialed it up even
Yeah.
more. Like, what the fuck? Why not turn
Yeah.
it up? Crank
Yeah.
it.
I don't know. This one's a picky thing.
Interesting.
This is a picky thing. Okay.
Oh, I can't wait.
So
Now we're getting into it.
I would say
We're moving
from
beyond
the
the light.
beginning to probably halfway through the movie, he really attempts the smolder face.
What's the smolder face?
It's like just a little pouty lips and like the squinty eyes and like, I'm cool, I'm Bruce Willis,
yeah.
John McCain.
Yeah.
So
I think this was his first
that was a little
delve
meh.
into the action hero.
Right.
Uh,
I'm not upset about it. I just think
It was like he was trying to develop his suave Bruce Willis
right.
thing where he just like looks at stuff a certain way. And he always looks at somebody that he doesn't like this. He like does
Yeah.
that thing where like his eyes kind of close for a second and then they just roll to the side,
Right.
and he just gives him that Bruce Willis head tilt, and he does it in this way that only Bruce Willis can.
Right.
But yeah, it's like he was developing. It's like Bruce Willis watched a bunch of cowboy movies before
Which is funny.
he took on this
because-
role, so he could try to look like the people they keep quoting in the
Right.
movie, like John Wayne or Gary Cooper.
Which is funny because they specifically mentioned multiple times, like, "Oh, you're a cowboy," or "Hey, cowboy," or
He squints his eyes in a dark building a lot,
right,
as if it's really bright.
right.
Maybe that's what's going on with this fucking light.
Well, go on.
I think there's some kind of hidden message in this movie. They're trying to tell us something.
Okay.
So these certain items in a room shine more intensely than they should, and Bruce Willis, by squinting all the time, he can see these things. No one else can.
Wow. I was being serious about it.
Yeah, and I think we should follow that trail, that rabbit hole a little deeper. Move on to your next point.
Okay,
maybe
Dick.
maybe we're on to something.
No,
here.
I can show you what I'm talking about afterwards. But well, give me your impressions of the movie.
Well,
Other than like,
I
I
mean-
love the movie.
well, you know, I love the movie. I mean, I pretty much did a run through because it's one of those movies that's so easy to follow and you can always have a good time with it.
Right.
I mean, I think it pretty much does its job well on all fronts, like well enough that I've watched it this many times.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know really what else to say about it that hasn't already been said. I'd kind of like need a specific other than just giving my overall overview, because I don't even like know where to start with it because it just does everything so well.
Right.
There's really
Well-
nothing I can sing its credit for that it hasn't already had its praises sung for.
Well, sing a praise or two. I mean, this is your official review.
It's
of the
acted
movie.
well, it's directed well, the characters are cool. I mean, the hero, him being this kind of everyman guy,
Yeah. the
he's
blue
not-
collar.
yeah, he's not wearing a headband with giant 50-inch biceps
Right.
and two M60s under each arm, just
Right.
spraying guys down left and right. Like I like when
What, you
he's
don't
on.
like Rambo.
Well, Rambo, that's a whole nother episode. I like Rambo 1 for a very specific reason, and
I don't get that off.
and I love Rambo 4. The rest of them, that's a whole nother podcast.
It's Rambo.
I liked when John McClane was up on the roof
Yeah.
and he's tying the fire hose around himself.
Right.
He knows the roof is about to blow up, so his only hope of surviving is jumping off the side with nothing
Spoilers.
but this fire hose. Oh Jesus!
Nothing but the fire hose.
Nothing but the fire hose is holding him up on the roof. And as he's tying it around himself, he's like, "Oh Jesus, God, don't let me die, please!" Like he's so terrified.
Right.
Or at least that's what they're trying to sell you on. Like here's one of the parts I had a problem with. I'll pick on it a little bit, okay? Yep.
Changing the camera for this.
So since we're talking about, he had so many situations in this movie where he almost fell to his death down like a
Where
shaft.
he actually
or off
died,
the-
but it's a movie.
Yeah. So, after he has the gun battle on the roof and he crawls through the fan and then he jumps down he's using the strap of his gun
Yeah.
to crawl down into the what is that
Air,
hole?
It's like a air duct
Yeah.
where like air would escape or be sucked down
Okay.
into the building's air system.
It pretty much looks like it goes all the way to the ground though.
Yeah.
So he's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's terrifying. That's one of those parts that starts to make my heart race faster just because it's like That's just like one of those things. Like even with a movie, if someone else is in danger of falling from a really high place, it gives me like
Is that a fear you have?
my skin crawls. Oh yeah,
Is it heights?
I can be up high, but if I don't have like that security,
Like firm ground?
yeah, like I need a rail.
Like
Like
if
in
if
front
there
of me.
was an edge with no rail, how close could you get?
If I got on my stomach, I could
No,
probably
no, no. Standing up.
then I wouldn't even get close to it at all.
I want to know what the science is
I would-
behind that.
Here's how close I would get to the edge. If somebody tackled me from where I was standing, if there was any chance of me tipping over the edge from where I was tackled,
Right.
that's where I wouldn't stand. Like I wouldn't get any closer than that spot. If I were to tip over from where I was standing, I
So
don't
about
even want
6
my
feet back.
head draped over the side.
So you'd get like up to 6 feet and be like, yeah, okay, I'm good.
yeah, I'd maintain a social distance from
See,
the edge.
I have this weird thing where it's like I kind of have to prove to myself I can get to the edge.
Well, that's all well and good and everything, but what if you fall?
Then I fall.
No, and you're just okay with that.
Well, I made my decision.
To
Every
get close to
decision
the
has
edge.
an outcome. So it's either I fall
Not the
or
outcome
I
I
don't.
would want.
I mean, you could get 6 feet from the edge and part of the cliff just falls and you're going with it. So,
Well, I went to the Grand Canyon earlier this year. Now, my cousin Andy is insane.
shout out.
Yeah, man. Woo! And we get out there to the Grand Canyon and he's just crawling all over, right on the edge of that thing. Or he's not even
Like
crawling.
literally hands and knees crawling? Or?
No. Actually, I was crawling. When I say crawling, what I mean is he was just all over that thing.
Right.
So he would stand right up against the edge
Yeah.
with his head staring out straight ahead into the great vista
Right.
that is the Grand Canyon, which kind of gives me disorientation just looking at that
Yeah.
thing, because when you see it in person, it's like you're looking at a painting, and you can see all these little details so far away.
Right.
And here's my cousin standing right on the edge, where if you go over that edge, that is a long way down.
Right.
It's far. It ain't just like a boom. It's more like
Why is it higher pitch?
like you're going down for a
Right.
while. It looks like it's miles.
Like you
down.
have time to think.
Yeah, you'll probably be able to like go through the Rolodex of every memory you ever have before
Right.
you hit the canyon floor.
Right.
But anyway, so that's my cousin, but me, like I was the one crawling, spider walking, crab walking, whatever, my
Right.
way sorted to the edge. And then I had the thought, what if this just slid off?
And then you couldn't handle it.
No, yeah, once I started thinking too much, I was out of
Yeah.
there. And then I
what
backed
is the-
away.
I gotta look up what the science of that is. There's got to be something. I mean, it can't just be like fight or flight, but like this like weird thing that
Well-
says for some reason if I get close to an edge, my balance disappears, gravity is gone.
Well, after I backed up, and Andy was still out there, but I could see him from an angle, and the rock that he was standing on looked like it would just slide off of the rock that it was attached to. Like it
Right.
already looked like it was severed from the other rock, and it was just this.
It was just there.
Yeah, it was just this bridge that. Well, I guess it's not a bridge if the other end of it doesn't reach anywhere. What do you call that? It's like
It's just like an overhang.
yeah, an overhang extension,
Yeah.
whatever. But he was out on the furthest part of that, and that
He really,
part hanging off.
Andy.
Yeah.
Stop.
Stop, back up, please don't fall.
Andy, please.
So that just made my heart race to the point where like it's like I had to get out of
There
there.
we go.
So when Mr. Bruce Willis like you see what he's trying to do, he's hanging on his gun strap in this giant air duct thing. He's trying to reach the vent
Right.
or whatever so he can crawl his way to another part of the building and escape the baddies. But the strap snaps, he falls, he misses what he was reaching for, but then he catches the vent below it
which
and pulls himself up
unbelievably impractical.
and pulls out a lighter and cracks some joke about come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs. But how can you be
Is that your impression?
no. I put maybe 20
Get a
I
spaghetti.
put like 20% effort
Yeah,
into
go
that.
ahead. Keep going.
But like he almost fell to his death into
Right.
a dark hole, and like 5 or 10 seconds after that happened, like he missed,
Yeah.
and he only caught that thing probably by accident
Right.
almost. And he pulls himself up and he's cracking jokes 10 seconds later. Like, how are you not just like?
Well, I think you have to. I don't think they're like well, it also depends.
I think you have to what? What?
Crack a jokes. You have to get rid of
No,
that tension.
he's
if
like
you're
his
gonna-
heart was like he wasn't even like breathing heavy or like it didn't even
well,
look like he just
obviously
went
he
through.
was trained in some type of badassery in the police force.
Oh my god!
No,
I
mean,
don't think they can train you for nearly falling.
certain
to your...
type of people react to like high stress situations very well, and that's why
If
we
you
have, like,
almost
elite
fell,
type people.
like he didn't just almost fall; he did fall. He
Yeah.
just caught himself.
Yeah.
On the wrong vent and then pulled
Right.
himself up. I mean, he was okay instantly. He's just like, oh yeah, it's all good. Like he wasn't even breathing heavy or like, oh my god, I literally almost died. I would probably be curled up in that vent
I mean,
for like the next hour, just like, holy shit.
yeah,
holy
but
shit,
that
holy
wouldn't
shit.
help you in that situation at all.
Thank you, Mister. You know everything about what any person would do in whatever situation. That yeah, well, look, man. Don't you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah, no,
the dude almost
I get it.
fell down this fucking shaft, and he's just like got nothing to
well,
say about it at all.
Well, yeah, my
He's, like,
point,
not
my point is
scared or
that type
anything.
of person is, I didn't fall down the shaft, so I'm moving on. That's that type of person. That's why I said different personalities.
This is
would-
one of those
would-
things I was sure you would get hung up on. Like this would be like the way you nitpick every single movie
No,
we watch with
because-
a big long
because
list.
it's consistent with his personality the entire time. There's not one time where he's like, "Oh no, this happened." Not once. The only time that he looked kind of freaked out was when the best bad guy of all, his name Hans Gruber, had his ex-wife person hanging over the edge, and he looked like, okay, I didn't factor this in. I have to do something, like I'm a little stressed now. But if you like right after that is over and he picks her up, the first thing he does is start kissing her. He's not like, he just moved on, like harm over, next step. That's like the personality he had throughout the entire thing. So I actually don't mind if it's like in real life, I think 9 out of 10 times he falls every single time. One, because he falls every single time, and two, like him being able to like grip, like there's no edge on those vents. It's just bent metal.
Yeah.
So it's not like he can like reach around and hold on to something. Like it's just flat. So like
Yeah.
this is all he got. And to pull himself up, like that's pretty extreme. But his attitude right after it is consistent throughout the entire thing. That's why I can look past like, wow, that was very implausible. I think I even said that out loud. I said that a couple times, but that's why I can look past it. I do completely understand.
I can buy it. I can buy him getting out of the falling situation. The part I've never been able to swallow though is how he like was just like as if he had just crawled into that vent from the ground floor.
Well,
not just fallen.
You wanna
and
know-
nearly died.
you know what?
and missed the first vent.
I think you're applying.
Pull himself up and crack a joke.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is applying like your fear into that scenario.
Well, sure, yeah, but I mean, my God, he missed the first vent. I mean, that's like literally death.
Yeah.
is saying I've arrived
Yeah.
because you've missed and now
Yep.
you're gonna fall. But he thankfully like
catches
the second
Yeah.
one.
Which, by the way, that's why I said that whole thing is. I don't even know if it's 9 out of 10 times. I think it's 10 out of times like that doesn't happen, because going from like let's say a 6-foot drop. I don't know the science behind it, but welcome to the Alchemy Podcast, where we're gonna make something up. Like a 6-foot drop, which kind of looked like that first vent. Maybe not even that.
Which vent?
Like he was climbing out of the vent and trying to reach over to the other one, right?
Yeah.
That might have been like a 6-foot drop ish, give or take.
Like when they shot it?
No, like from the vent he crawled
Oh,
out
okay.
of to the vent he was trying to
I
get
thought
in.
you meant like when they were shooting it, they had like a mattress 6 feet down.
No.
So it's like,
Like,
how the fuck is that?
That would have
6
been
feet?
like a 6-foot like difference maybe.
Okay.
So he had to, and here's the other thing: he had to get from this wall to this wall. So he's like down on this, the strap, stretching over trying to get it. Let's say it was 6 feet. I think it was probably more than that, like the height difference. Can you imagine dropping 6 feet and just trying to catch yourself? Like, there's no way.
yeah.
Your hands, you grab and your fingers are just going to be like done.
Yeah, it's not a bar he's grabbing. It's
Right. And then
just a flat edge.
we're not even talking about 6 feet. We're talking about 12 feet. Whatever.
Yeah.
There's, you have to be some like psycho superhero strength to do that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the few things in the movie that are like, okay, all right.
Well, and then when the fire hose thing, when
Yeah.
it snapped off of the whatever,
Which was hyper convenient. Of course, all of the bolts that has held this thing up for years are just ching 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 ching.
yeah, like a fireball happens around it, and then
Right.
it just like it comes out of the wall, and then it hits the lip of the building,
Right.
but it
And
doesn't
stays.
and stays.
Yeah. Yep.
So I had a problem with that.
Yeah. Because normal physics tell you that when an object kind of like an object that would hit a wall like this would at least teeter, right? This was like the wall was like this, and the whole thing was like, this big, and it's just like ching.
This movie really has a problem with 90-degree angles.
It really does.
Like that's its biggest
That's
problem.
the biggest flaw. Mark it down. You failed.
So yeah, like those are the kind of things that like I was really trying to pay attention to this time. The thing with him not being more freaked out's always bothered me. But
do you understand what I'm saying though? If you look at his character, I think you can understand it.
well, he's got some fucking balls on him then,
Yeah.
because
Well, I mean, if
I would be shitting my pants in that vent probably for the next hour just trying to get over the fact that
after all of the stuff he did before that, you still think you would, like, if you did everything he did up to the point, like you rode a elevator, you killed people flat out, no issue, and like you drop 12 feet to a different vent, and you're like, oh, that's what did you in.
well, see, I don't know. I'd have to go back and kind of observe it a little bit closer again and like look
Right.
at all these situations that he was in that could compare to that. And especially the ones that came right before that. Like he was in that fight with that guy, the first terrorist that he killed, where he
Yeah.
rolled down the stairs and the terrorist's neck happened to get broken because Bruce Willis had plot armor.
Right.
Um,
He conveniently landed on top of him when he went down the stairs.
Yeah, but like, see, that's like that's like a man on man
Right.
fight, fist for fist.
I think what it is you feel the control was taken away. Like even in a fist to fist fight or like guns, you have some level of control or like control over the situation, which may lead to a good outcome.
Yeah,
And when you're falling from point A to point Z way down here,
gravity wins everything.
there's almost no control over that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, like for some reason it doesn't. After Bruce Willis like wins a fist fight with a
Right.
guy,
Right.
Like, I'm not really gonna blame anybody if he sits there for a minute and he's just like taking 5 minutes and he's just like, oh my god, oh my god,
Well,
holy
see,
shit, I almost died.
well, and to your point, he did do that. He did that when he was talking to Al, right? The first
Yeah.
one of the first times where he's like smoking a cigarette in that one like construction area that wasn't finished yet, and then he did it a second time after he had to run through all that glass. So he did have those two moments where it was like, okay, I've had enough for a second. I just need to wrap my head around some things. Let's talk. And it was always in this like stupid, arrogant, witty way. So that's why when he falls in the vent, it's just kind of like,
Well,
it just all makes sense.
I
to
feel
me.
like he did have these here's what my problem kind of is, and
Go on.
maybe this is the point I've been trying to make the
Destroy
whole
it.
time, is he does have these very human moments
Yeah.
where he feels very vulnerable, not like your every
Right.
80s action hero that's
Right.
impenetrable to bullets, can just walk around like a one-man tank, invincible to everything.
Right.
But when he was up on the see, there's like two parts where he was faced with the
Literal death.
death of falling as
Right.
a as a strong possibility.
Wow, this
in
is
his
your
near
fear
future.
for sure.
Yeah, one of mine. So he, like I said, he has a lot of these very human moments. The second part where he almost fell to his death, where I think it was the second part he almost fell to his death, where he's tying the fire hose around himself and he's like, "Oh God, please don't let me die." Like, he is saying all that because he knows he's about to jump off the building, right?
Right.
So he's, "Oh God, please don't let me die," in response to the possibility of falling to his death. So I can hear the scaredness in him coming out there, but where
Right.
was that when after he almost did fall and was crawling through the vent? Where was the, "Oh my God, I almost died. That was so close." That's just where like I get hung up. Because
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I don't see.
it's like he's got
It's
two
very odd
different
because this is
modes.
like a complete role reversal
I know.
from normal, and especially on
Eh.
a movie I didn't think it would be on. Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Like, he can do his bravado, macho, tough cop thing when
Right.
his adrenaline is rushing and he's in a gun battle or a fist fight. But
Right.
yeah, that was just one that didn't like stick the landing for me. And I guess it's just because
ruined
there's a couple
entire
other
movie.
things that are working against him there. But
Right.
like,
That was a pretty big one for you, I think.
well, yeah, that's the one. Like, I've always thought that while watching it, but I'd never. It's always just been Die Hard's awesome, Die Hard's awesome.
Right. And now you have to prove it.
Yeah, let's have a discussion where we talk about what we didn't like about Die Hard. So you mentioned the construction site a minute ago.
Yeah.
What the hell was the deal with McClane yelling out loudly and celebrating with himself when he was up on that construction floor where he saw the police coming up the road and he's like,
Oh, and he's just yelling.
he's just like, "Oh
Yeah.
fucking cavalry coming,
finally.
yeah, kiss the fucking Dalmatian, woo!"
Oh yeah.
He's
yeah,
like
yeah.
screaming and laughing and
I think
it's banging on the window.
Yeah,
Stupid
so
motherfucker! Boom, boom.
I think that's a pretty good point because if you look at the whole movie and like the consistency with some things, like we've talked about, and then the inconsistency in others, I feel like if you really wanted to start picking some stuff apart, you could pick probably his character apart in that way, to probably a fan hated level. And maybe it was the writing or how they built his character, because like, or maybe you can fall back on this when John shows emotion either which way, it's like to its fullest level. then okay, maybe that's his personality. So like when he's angry, he's yelling and punching and gunning and doing this. When he's sad or hurt, he's got that, like manly thing going on. When he's happy, he's just screaming at a window that no one's going to hear except for the bad guys.
Yeah.
When he's happy, he got his wife back. He's just trying to make out with her with blood stained everything. He just is like full emotion all the time,
Yeah.
or an attempt to. And maybe that's where it comes from, but it did feel very weird because it's almost like it goes from a scene where he's like, is that right? No. I got to back up a little bit. So like he's stealthing the entire time, or attempting to. And then there's like very obvious times that it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so there's that like weird flip-flop thing that happens, just like the windows. Now that I think about that more, I'm like, why didn't that should have bugged me a little bit more than it did, I think. Because I think to me it was just kind of like, okay, if I was in his shoes and all this stuff happened.
He didn't have any shoes though.
Right. If I put myself into the character, seeing like a cop car or like the fire trucks and police coming down the road, you would have like an immense like release of like relief is the word.
Yeah.
It would just be like, oh my God, finally, which is like very much what he did to an extreme and over exaggerated extent.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like thought that was pretty dumb. You're supposed to be being covert,
right,
and screaming. Like that doesn't seem like the kind of situation if there was like trained professional soldiers and they saw something they
Right.
were excited about, they wouldn't give away their position.
They're not like, oh my God, the ice cream.
Yeah, backup's on its way. Whoa! And then artillery shell lands right in your foxhole because you're screaming your position.
Right.
So, yeah, that bothered me. Like, why was this guy so difficult to hunt down and kill? He's one guy,
Yeah.
and you have 13
Right.
terrorists
So
or robbers with automatic weapons, whatever you want to call
Right.
clearly everyone knows what they're doing. These
Right.
dudes are carrying around like a fucking missile launcher that they have to bolt into the floor to get it to
Right.
shoot. So I think they know what they're doing with their weapons.
yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what that was,
I don't know,
because it
missile
looked like a
launcher,
mortar,
Call of Duty bazooka.
and then he was like holding it on his shoulder, but somehow it was also like bolted to the floor.
Those two dudes, it seemed like all they did was just like race back and forth with crates with rockets in them. Take them to this side of the building. Now take them to this side.
Yep.
Now take them back over here. It's like, what were they doing the whole time? They were just like
They were just
detached from
taking crates to places.
just detached
like,
from everyone else. And
Seriously,
they seem to be on every floor,
like
on every scene of
at the
movie.
beginning of the movie, John McClane opens the door and he sees the boxes come in. 5 minutes later, he's on a different floor. He sees the boxes like flying down a hallway.
Yeah.
20 minutes later, they're like, leave it alone, guys.
Yeah.
And because one like falls over. I don't know why that was Arnold.
Leave it alone,
cow. Leave it in the ground. Then
Yeah,
they're like
there was,
running to
like-
the window, blasting.
He's like running up the stairwell, opening a door, looking in. There's a guy with a crate. Let's run up to the next floor. More guys are up here. It made it seem
Right.
like there was like a dozen terrorists, not just in the building as a whole, but like a
Right.
dozen on every floor
Right.
at the start. I mean, for all he knew, it was like a whole army was taken
Yeah.
over.
And then when the guys get set up, and they call it an RV, the armored vehicle
The
that
police
shows
vehicle. Yeah.
up. The guy's like, what did he say? He's like, I see them, and he like looks into the thing, and Hans is like, fire. And then he goes like this. He doesn't really aim. He just leans down and
Yeah.
direct hit.
He's just like looking through his goggles and
Yeah.
Well, that's how you do it in Call of Duty. You just look through your goggles and
Yeah.
There.
There was just a couple things like that.
rain fire upon that spot that I'm looking through my binoculars. Rain fire.
Kill, kill, kill.
Why couldn't they fucking kill John McClane?
There's no way that happens in this movie.
But how? If you had
Okay.
one
go
guy,
on.
you had to take out one dude that was foiling your plans, and you had 12 guys at your disposal to take
Yeah.
care of it. Why? And everyone knows
Overconfidence.
how to use their guns.
They were too confident in themselves.
Well, clearly, because in the end they lost.
They had a great plan, but just too confident.
I just don't know why they couldn't flush this dude out. Like, it looked like they probably would have been able to do this operation with like 6 guys.
Yeah.
Because by the end, after McLean killed half of them, they still had like someone to try to break into the vault, someone to
Yep.
guard the hostages,
Well,
someone to guard the desk.
Yeah, and I was actually pretty confused about how many guys there were at multiple points in the movie, even though they were like, oh, we had 12 guys, now we're at 8. Like, even though they kept a scoreboard for the audience. It was very confusing because, like, 2 or 3 of the guys you barely ever saw, and then when you saw them, they were on the screen for, like, a little while and then died.
Yeah.
So, like,
There was 13.
or 13.
Even though they kept saying 12 multiple times, the 13th guy that no one ever mentions was with Theo, the guy breaking into the vault the whole time.
Oh yeah, that other guy.
There was a guy with like he always
Yep.
had these goggles or safety
Yeah.
goggles on his forehead.
But
And he
then
was
he
always
just kind of disappeared, though.
well, Bruce Willis punched him in the face at the end, and he dropped the barabons all over the
that's
floor.
Right. He was like running. Okay,
That's
yeah.
how they got him out of the picture.
One punch.
Punch him in the face. Ooh, he falls over.
One punch.
And he's unconscious, and that's it. It's like so he got punched in the face, and Theo, the computer nerd terrorist, got punched in the face.
Right.
So 2 out of the 13 lived through it by being
Perfect.
insignificant.
Right.
But yeah, that 13th guy. It's funny how the movie keeps saying there's 12 terrorists, even though there's a 13th.
Well, he's
He's
not
just
a terrorist.
he's just the drill
he's just
helper.
he's an intern.
It's like the Hateful Eight actually has 10 people in
Right.
There's the guy under the floor, and then there's Obi,
Right.
the carriage driver, but he doesn't count as one
He
of the
just
Hateful
doesn't
Eight.
count. Yeah.
This is kind of like the 13th terrorist.
Right.
He's the drill boy.
Yeah, he doesn't count because if they all go to jail, he'll just be like, "He forced me to do it. I'm not one.
Yeah. Just operate the drill, man. They didn't tell me what was in there.
I'm Operation Drill."
As far as I know, they let us in here. But I just don't understand how they could not, like Hans said it himself, like you had him neutralized. You could have locked him into that air duct or shaft or whatever and been done with it. Like, it's like they didn't go about anything tactically. How many fucking
Right.
gunmen do you need to watch 30 hostages?
Right.
You have like 6 or 7 guys at your disposal. Why is Carl the only one? Like, you send one blonde guy with a gun.
What? It was his brother first. Who?
Yeah, by himself.
Yeah.
And
that was
then-
Carl,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Or no, that
Carl
Carl-
was the second guy.
Carl's the longer haired
Yeah.
guy. His brother was the first wearing all the gray.
I don't remember what his name was, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. But so Hans sends him by himself to kill McLean. McLean
Right.
kills him instead. And then the 2 guys doing the most important job, apparently, by rigging the roof to explode.
Right.
They
This
come
is
off
what's
duty.
so confusing. Yeah.
They come off duty.
We need all 18
Yeah,
men
to
down
be-
here
to be the
guard
hunter.
hostage. Yeah.
What? Okay, so the 2 guys doing the most important job. Yeah, you go find McLean, and everyone else just standing
While they're
in the lobby,
Yeah.
or not the lobby, on
Or-
the 30th floor with the
yeah,
hostages.
or in the office just doing nothing.
Yeah. It's Hans is like, no, we need 2 guards in every corner of the room that the
Right.
hostages are in. We need a total of 8 guys. Okay. Watching the
Everybody else is
hostages.
gonna be up.
I need at least 3 people standing behind me in the office, holding their guns up, like, right behind my head, so I look
like
cool.
all 80s.
Yeah, so I look like a super villain.
Right.
So anytime anyone walks into this office, they see 3 guys in here with guns with
and are
me.
terrified.
So in order for me to maintain my image, I have to always have 3 guys in
Yeah.
here. They cannot go hunt for McLean.
While we're talking about his office, what was the deal with that guy coming in and being like, oh, he's like, I negotiate $1 million deals.
Oh, the sleazy shit
yeah,
ball guy.
the cocaine boy.
Yeah.
What was the deal? Like,
What was he trying to
do you feel like that entire scene just couldn't have been in the movie?
Yeah,
It
I
felt
think it would have
like
got
a little bit of a waste.
I think it would have got along fine without that part in it. If you had to cut some runtime, I'm not really sure what that guy added other than to just kind of bolster up McLean even more. Like, hey, here's what a sleazy asshole looks like.
Right.
Doesn't he look so great to the bad husband, John McClane? Like, here's a
Right.
guy that's actually a piece of shit. Maybe he was just kind of put in there as like
cannon
as a
fodder
side by side comparison for McLean.
right. I guess that works a little.
Yeah, but I'm not really sure. I mean, he was just kind of like this sleaze bag
Yeah. The
that tried to get him to give himself up. I don't know why he thought
Yeah.
that would work.
The only scene that in the entire movie that I was like, was that scene. Just because I didn't really see the value in it at all.
Yeah.
Other than like when you explained that makes a little bit of sense, but that's just kind of like solidifying or like, would you say bolstering like the idea of John being a good guy, I guess.
Yeah, it's like if you want to make a character more likable, you put a piece of shit in there right next to him, and automatically you'll think more highly of the other guy.
Right. No matter how many bad guys he's killed. Right. So
No matter how much he mops up. And why don't we talk for a second about the cop, the lead chief officer. I'm in charge here.
what, the one that comes up after
Who just
Al's
has
been there for a while?
yeah, who just has a
Yeah.
problem with everything,
Right.
and just completely blows off. Oh well, who knows? It's probably some stockbroker got depressed.
Right. And yeah. Oh God.
Like,
It's so ridiculous. So
come on.
the only actual cop in that entire movie is Al. Or human being that is also a cop is Al. Because that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Because so look, you have what was it, deputy chief?
Deputy chief, yeah,
Um
whatever that means exactly.
So whatever that anyway, he comes in, he's the big shot in the area, okay? He's like telling Sergeant Al to go home, and Al's like, not in your life. So I don't know like where they end up on the I'm in charge of who scale, because I'm not sure how that works. But all I'm saying is it was very confusing. He was a token awful cop guy. And then the FBI shows up, and they're even worse. They're like joke characters that like we would have put in.
Yeah, they're like
something.
cartoons.
That like
No
they
one
walk
gives
in-
a shit
like
about
the
hostages.
Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah.
Like basic, the actors were all but laughing when they said it, and then the one Johnson is like literally like,
Yeah, I like that, Johnson.
we'll handle it from here. Just
Yeah.
eating like a cracker or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is what is it? And then they get in the helicopter, and then one of the Johnsons has been to war while the other one was in junior high, and he's like just ready to shoot a gun. And I'm like,
He's got his hat on backwards.
yeah, it was just a little much.
Yeah.
That whole scenario.
It's
with
like the worst
cops.
possible people that could be in charge ended up in charge. And who the fuck was in charge when the SWAT team was trying to first infiltrate the
It
building
was that
through
guy
the doors?
with the hat.
Well, the guy with the hat was told by Deputy Chief Robinson, pull him back. And he's like, oh no, they're almost in. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, they're about to be killed. Pull them back.
Here's what you
no,
have
no,
to,
they're almost in.
Here's what you have to know about SWAT versus the police. Apparently, no one listens to anybody.
you know, it doesn't matter if it's a life and death situation and your captain is yelling at you to pull them back because we've just found out that this op or whatever you want to call it has been
Op.
compromised
Oh yeah, okay.
to get in the building.
Operation.
Yeah.
This operation.
Save myself some syllables.
So yeah,
But it's like this is the dire situation at hand here. Like if you know, if a nurse is about to inject a patient with too much medicine and the
Right.
doctor says stop, oh no,
no, I'm almost done.
it took me a really long time to fill this up. We almost are out at it, so I'm just gonna well, you know, because once I put it in the syringe, it's no good after that, so I might as well just use it all. No, that's dangerous for him. No, I'm just gonna do it. Okay.
No. I'm gonna radio it in. Hold on.
It's like, come on, like you're this is the same thing, right?
Also,
you're
yeah. So this
and
ties,
then they get shot right after
right, and this ties into one of my about the movie is why are all the police, SWAT, FBI extras that weren't shown on the scene for more than 2 minutes? Why are they all wearing beanies?
I don't know.
Why?
To make them look so lame. They
I
got
just don't understand it.
Way of bolstering McLean up and making him look like the cool man compared to everyone else.
I don't know
They can't look more
how many
awesome than-
times I've ever seen a policeman SWAT. I haven't seen any in real life, at least, wearing a beanie storming a building.
Yeah.
Normally they have some type of helmetry, on for protection, and these guys look like they had a black sweatsuit on with maybe a vest. I don't even know if anything had
like
police. It was just a blank beanie, and then all the commanders had blank black hats.
It's almost like the prop master just didn't show up with the helmets
Or
or
there
something.
was no prop master.
Yeah, they just ran out of budget.
They were just like, we're going to the dollar store.
It is interesting, yeah, because you're like, these SWAT guys are so half-assed and
Right.
lame looking. I don't. Yeah, I can't
But
figure
it
that
is-
one out.
It is fun. I mean, it gets across what is
yeah.
needed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I'm not gonna
then
boo-hoo about it.
Yeah, and because then you have the normal cops, which one of the dispatchers calls a black and white,
Yeah.
which was ridiculous. Send a black and white down. Like what? Who called what? This is definitely from the 80s.
Black and white, a red and blue.
But so you have the normal cops, you can tell who they are, and then you definitely can tell who their higher ups are because they're in like gray and tan suits. And then when the FBI comes, they're like all black.
The
you
men
know,
in black look.
Yeah. And
the
it's just
Reservoir
like,
Dogs
okay.
look.
It's just like, we get what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing. It was just fun. It's quirky in that way. This movie is a little quirky in very specific ways. And maybe it's just because like a lot of like the funny like shticks of action movies from the 80s has like a ton of this stuff in it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't make it bad at all because I did enjoy the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just picking apart things that we've noticed
Right.
because no one else will. They wouldn't
Just
dare
like,
go
"Oh,
there.
So one of the
I mean, we could talk all night long about how awesome Hans is and his accent, but
how did he say? It's like Merry Christmas. Ho, ho,
ho,
ho,
or no,
ho.
now I have a machine gun.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho,
Ho.
yippee ki motherfucker.
And he says it terribly. It's so ridiculous. One of the things it wasn't like, oh no. It did kind of like take me out of the movie for a couple times. Is the sound design.
Oh, of like the pistol, the silence
pistols, the action scenes. There was a couple times where it was when John and Batty Boy, who lost his brother, were fighting, and he was like pushed up against a barrel, and it literally sounded like a Foley artist who had like a single barrel and was just like hitting it with a stick or something, and that's the only sound they use for all of the hits.
Yeah.
Like there was just a couple times like that where I was just like, like it didn't all
yeah.
connect correctly for me, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
That's
There I noticed that too. There was like very sound library-ish sounds in there. There were some sound effects that were used multiple times. There was even
it just didn't blend well.
there was like even a scream or a yell when the first terrorist that he got in a fight with, the one that he broke his neck in the stairs, the scream that he makes in the stairs, the or whatever,
Yeah.
that same sound was made while they were fighting, like the
Oh,
exact
really?
same one. And it's like, who the hell puts that in there and thinks that people aren't going to pick up on that?
What is the budget for this?
Oh, I have no idea.
Keep talking.
But yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where, why are you doing this? Do you really think people aren't going to notice that you just reused the same sound effect?
Right.
So we're going to look up the budget for this movie. Directed by,
Hold on. Where was the budget at?
there it is, 25 to 35 million box office.
So a lot.
It's kind of a wide estimate, isn't it? 25 to 35 million.
Well, it's still,
We'll say
it's
30
it's
million.
within 10, but right. So it had quite a bit of money to spend. I mean, and they definitely spent it probably pretty wisely. It's just the sound was not something I was impressed with. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's all.
While we're an hour in, should we talk about the Christmas aspect?
Well, that was my next thing.
Woo!
So, before I go, would you say, okay, I'll preface it by saying this. In no sense of the phrase Christmas movie is it about Santa or Christmas time in the way you think of Christmas. But do you think it is a Christmas movie?
What I'll say is I watch it every Christmas.
Don't get it wrong. You will have the world.
Ooh, the world's coming after me now. Ooh. Well, the funny thing about the world is no matter what answer you give, someone's coming after you.
Truth.
For me, I watch it every single Christmas. So for me, it is. But if someone's like, well, it's not for me, then I'll just be like, okay.
Right.
Because like I watch this at Christmas. Like it happens at Christmas. That's when I see this movie. It recurs that time of year every year. I'm not putting this in July really ever that I remember, because that's just not the way I do it.
Right.
I don't look at the movie shelf and be like, I think I'm going to watch Die Hard today. And that doesn't happen unless it's December.
Right.
So for me, like, yeah, it is a Christmas movie. For me.
Right.
If someone else says differently, good for you.
Yeah.
Not gonna argue with them. It's
So,
not as like Christmassy as other Christmas
final
movies.
stand.
There-
You think it is a Christmas movie?
For me, it's not as Christmas movie-ish as
No, but
a lot
just,
of the other
just in
Christmas
general,
Christmas movies
it's a
out there.
Christmas movie.
Yeah, but I would put it on the list.
Yeah.
If there was like a Christmas movie list and it's like, hey, what do you want to watch? Hey guys, let's get together and watch a Christmas movie. Some people start throwing out ideas.
Right.
I can see that being in the pool.
Right.
Why not? What disqualifies it from being a Christmas movie? What
Okay.
what is it? What would it need in there to be a Christmas movie? Like
Right.
fucking Santa Claus is one of the hostages, or Gruber smacking people with a giant candy cane? I mean,
A giant candy cane. Good lord.
when Bruce Willis is up on the roof, Santa and the reindeer come by
Right.
and throw gifts on everybody.
Well, of course, that'll be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Jack Frost bursts in the building and starts ass fucking everybody with his carrot
I don't know
nose.
why it has to be sexual.
I'm just
Um,
trying anything I can to make it a Christmas movie for everybody.
So this is what I'll say about it. I think it tries so hard to remind you that it's Christmas time every chance it can get. Like almost to a fault. I mean, it's just all about it's Christmas time. There's decorations, they're at a Christmas party, everybody seems festive. Um it's just everywhere. I mean, for God's sake, like even in one of the scenes, um, he I don't know if he's fighting or something. He's like walking up some steps and like a Christmas tree falls over
Yeah.
for like kind of almost no reason. It's just like always in your face, which brings me to my actual talking point, the music. I feel like the music was only Christmas music.
Yeah, aside from like the main score.
Be
Or you,
the main score?
I just mean like the instrumental score of the
It
movie.
was Christmas music. It was Christmas songs slowed down.
Huh.
Like,
Even
for
like during
real.
the action
There was like
scenes,
jingle bells.
you heard like
yeah.
like Christmas
There was
melodies
like
in there.
it was like jingle bells or whatever Christmas song it was, and it was like a real somber part, and it was like slowed down,
Oh yeah,
and
that,
you
I
know
picked up
it was
on
like
that.
you know if it was jingle
It
bells,
was the,
jingle bells, it was like
It was the ode
dun.
to joy. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah,
dun,
but it was
dun.
like slowed down and like
Yeah.
real low.
I
So
picked up on that.
you didn't even like
I just meant like the main, like when the action was at its climax,
but
like
there-
even that score.
but there was even times where it was like higher pace
Yeah.
stuff happening, and it was like faster versions or the version of Christmas songs. It was like, now I'm not saying every piece of music was Christmas music. I'm just saying it was like everywhere, way more than I even caught, because like when I caught it I was like, oh my gosh, like that's interesting because it really works in this scene,
Yeah.
but it's a Christmas song, so it's blatant.
Yeah. Ode to
That's
Joy.
my point.
Ode to Joy was a big one.
Right.
That was felt like it played all throughout it.
So if I had to say, if someone asked me, well, because we're asking ourselves, is it a Christmas movie? I would say if you don't put it in a Christmas category, it's only because you think action has nothing to do with Christmas. That's the only like leg you can stand on.
That's
I
the
think.
bottom line. Folks.
I'm really like, come up with another one though, because you take all the action out of this and you could release this as like, oh, some crazy guy comes to the Christmas party movie.
Yeah.
That's it.
You take all the action out of it. I mean, what if you took all the Christmas out of it? Like,
Then it's just a,
it could still work, but it just wouldn't be as like
it's not
charming and fun
well,
as
that's
it is.
because it's an 80s action movie, and without something, it's not really going to stand out much. I think the fact that they did have it Christmas blown in your face is a really smart choice, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot better than it just being nothing.
Right.
Or what if it was like a Halloween party?
I mean, that could work too.
Yeah.
In a different
Anything
way.
could be done well.
It's just the fact that it's not, well, it is kind of just an action movie, but just the fact that you have that Christmas element is just that, like, you know, there's 1,000 movies out there that do the same thing, but which one of those 1,000 has that like weird thing that's just kind of like, wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's what this was like. Just the Christmas music alone, to me, is just like, yeah, that could put it above another movie that's exactly the same in a different setting.
Like Gremlins is a Christmas movie, and
Right.
that's just a bunch of little monsters running around killing people.
Well, I mean, there's a whole subgenre of like horrors that are Christmas movies.
I'm saying, like, what element,
Right.
what ingredient do you need to throw in there that classifies it as a Christmas movie?
I think it's the family Disney
What about
style.
Bad Santa? Is that not a Christmas movie? That's not family.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think people's idea of a Christmas movie is like the entire family from age 80 to 1 can sit down and watch it without any harm.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
necessarily this
Hallmark
movie
channel.
or that's a Christmas movie. It makes you feel warm and the fire is going and you're putting peppermint into your hot chocolate. And
So when you hear the words Christmas movie, what's like the first one that comes to mind? It's whatever popped in your head first.
well, the first movie that popped into my head was probably Elf. But like the first thing that always pops in my mind is like a blank DVD cover with just like red and green decoration.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's very odd to say out loud, but it's like when someone's like, "Oh, Christmas movie," like that's the first thing I think, because it's just like a Christmas movie is going to have that on the cover, like some type of red decoration and green Santa reindeer. Like that's just what it feels like in my head. It's just like that's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
Movie wise, Elf probably, because if there's like one Christmas movie that I just find entertaining, the movie's just ridiculous and fun. And Will Ferrell. So it's just a funny laugh.
That's kind of what, this might be a really stupid question, but is that what kind of put Will Ferrell on the map a lot more, was that Elf movie? Because when I think of Will Ferrell, that always seems like
I don't
one of my earliest memories of him getting started,
well
like when he got really popular. I know he's obviously done other stuff before Elf. It's just that
I don't know. Does IMDb show movies in a list?
yeah, if you go to all filmography,
Where was that at? Did you see it?
it's on there somewhere. I'm used to looking at it on my phone, but there's something that says like all filmography. But what? Here you go.
Was producer, actor.
Yeah. So, what always comes to my mind when I hear Christmas movie is
Here we
Home Alone pops in my head right away.
go. Oh yeah, 100%.
I think that's just because that was like the first Christmas movie I probably ever saw.
right.
I remember being like babysat and that movie would be on. I'm like barely old enough to speak and I'm watching Home Alone.
Yeah, he's in
Oh,
Zoom-
here's Elf
Zoolander.
2003. Okay, so
So Old School
yeah.
was a big one. Elf. Oh god. Elf, Anchorman. I would say Anchorman put him on the map for like the grown up. Elf was like a mix between like you could do this.
Yeah,
For
well that's
kids
how
thing.
I thought of him at first, was this family friendly kind of
Yeah.
funny guy.
Oh, Step Brothers was until 2008. Step Brothers was another huge one.
Yeah. I saw that in the movie in the
the
theater.
other guys, great. He's done a lot of stuff. My goodness, he was in The Office,
Yeah, I forgot.
which I
yeah.
didn't love him in, but he's still Will Ferrell.
Yeah. I always forget that he was in The Office for like 2 episodes or something.
Right? Gosh, that's a lot.
Yeah, he's been busy.
But yeah. What did you say? Home Alone. Oh, Home Alone is like that's one movie that I could watch every single year without hesitation. We actually Ezekiel picked Home Alone 2 the other night, which we didn't finish, but that was just entertaining to watch, like how to rehash the exact same idea
Yeah.
in a different setting. And it works to a certain extent. It's not as like pure, I think, as like the original Home Alone, just because you know what you're getting with it.
Yeah.
That was one of those movies where I was like, I remember watching that and actually being like terrified of that furnace and that old
Oh
man.
yeah.
And then by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, it's all okay. My favorite thing about the Home Alone movies is Marv. Marv is hilarious.
Yeah,
He's just such a fucking idiot.
yeah, he really is.
And when he gets hurt and he's just like screaming like
Right.
a little girl.
Right. Is it? He's the. Who's the other one? What's the other name?
Harry.
Yeah, Harry.
Yeah, and he's always going Fridger, because apparently he was always swearing,
Right.
just improving f bombs, and
Right.
like, Joe, you can't say that. This is PG.
And he's like,
You're not making
"No,
Goodfellas anymore.
I'm a good fella.
Yeah, I think it was the same year he did
Yeah.
Goodfellas.
Yeah, of course it is.
And, yeah, and
because
so,
that's how movies go.
Yeah.
You go from Goodfellas to I'm a robber and trying to kill a kid, basically.
Joe, you're making a Christmas movie now. We know there was a Christmas scene in Goodfellas.
right.
But that's that one, Christmas Vacation, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's like a Thanksgiving movie, though. It's like
Yeah.
one of the only Thanksgiving movies I can think of. Actually, it's the only one I can think of. But that's like, I watch that every year.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking about Christmas movies, like even that one kind of like slips its way in because
It's like it's the holiday.
it's the holiday. Yeah, it's the trio of the
Right.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all
Just
kind
for a
of
split
get lumped
second,
together.
I was like trio.
Yeah. Trio, and then Halloween's in there as its own unique thing, as it
Right.
should be. We should get a couple more of those a year.
Yeah, really. So
all in all, so you would say it's a Christmas movie then?
I would
for
say,
you?
yeah. I mean, it hits the list of like, if I had to do a list of Christmas movies, like I don't know how I can't put that in on the list, regardless of how high or low it is.
Right.
Like I don't know what, you know what like, okay, I'll put it in the sub genre action Christmas action, whatever. It's still the Christmas.
What'd you think of the action?
Overall,
Being that it's
it was
an action movie.
It was a little 80s for sure.
Uh-huh.
Not bad. There was some things that, of course, were a little just like, I mean,
You got those 80s muzzle flashes
yeah,
and
I mean,
squibs
Blonde
and
Boy is like
canned sound
throwing
effects.
punches and kicks that are good, but you can tell like everything's set up.
Oh yeah,
And then
blonde hair boy
Karate chop.
sets
Like,
up for the most obvious karate
he
chop.
kicks John onto a set of steps, lets John get up, and then the first thing he thinks to do is, I'm going to karate chop, and goes down just like an action figure, stiff arm, like, ugh.
Right, like he's got like a switch on his back that
Right.
just makes him go like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that's all he can do.
Yeah, the way he sets that up is and it was almost like he was bringing it down
Yeah.
slowly for
Yeah.
the actor to
Yeah.
like have time to react to it.
That was some of my few issues with the action, was that type of stuff. You could tell that either one, nobody, like, I don't know how it was back in Hollywood in the 80s, but they may have not had any type of like real stunt coordinator or like that walked through like those type of fight scenes. Those may have been like the director saying, hey guys, punch and kick and we'll figure it out, because that's what it looked like a little. What it looked like is they were given like a vague, like, okay, we got to start the fight over here. We need this for shots, and we got to end it over here. Go. And they were like, okay.
Yeah. The only memorable
Like that's what it felt like.
yeah, they weren't really memorable fights. The
Right.
only memorable parts about it was, why didn't you shoot him when the gun was aimed at him
Yeah.
before the fight happened?
The most realist question of the entire movie.
And the ridiculous frozen in stance karate chop
right.
is like what I remember most about the fights, and
Yeah.
and how obvious of a stuntman it was,
Yeah.
like 12 different times.
Right.
But like, speaking positively about the action, and like I've mentioned before, like it sets up its geometry or its layout really well before an action scene takes place. So like it's really well directed. Like you can follow what's going on in the
Yeah.
action scene.
Yeah, I don't have them. I
Like
don't
it does
mind that.
it does that really, really well. The way it's shot, the way it's framed up. Like, yeah, it's an action movie, but it's like a well composed action movie.
Right.
It's not in the sense where it's a camera on a jackhammer type thing,
Right.
where you can't tell what's going on or where anyone is in relation to each other.
Right. Yeah, and that was nice. You can follow everything really clearly. It's just there was, and sometimes there was like no issue with it because it was pretty fluid. It did its job. Um, and it was like, okay, that was solid. And then there was just other times where it was just like, okay,
Yeah.
like maybe we skipped a day here and didn't choreograph anything. Um, my only other issue with the action just in general is the amount of bullets that flied around and no one else got killed somehow or hurt extensively. Um, I mean,
How come every time someone had the jump on McLean, like
nothing happened.
they missed their shot
Right.
really badly?
I mean, the blonde guy literally was like, "He's mine. I'm killing him." Ugh. And then he goes from being into like I don't think they ever showed him leaving anywhere. He just like McLean's. Oh, once again, McLean's like, "I'm gonna make sure Al hears me." Ow! Ow! There's C4 everywhere. Like
Yeah.
why are you yelling?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, why are you yelling? There's no need for this. And then he's like, goes to turn and like,
Gun against
muzzle.
the cheek.
yeah. And this blonde guy has talked about John McClane killing his brother for a while now. Argued with his boss, saying he's mine, it's personal, I'm going to kill him. And then when he has the chance, he does not pull the trigger. Oh no, this is a fight for honor now.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
A real sadistic person like that is literally going to pull the trigger, blow your jaw off, and then let you sit there and die, and that's it. It's all over.
Yeah.
The movie's done with. But no, for honor, my brother died by your hand. Now you will die by mine.
I have a karate chop to kill you with.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like there was the part where Carl was up on like you just said, he was like, nobody kills him but me.
Right.
And like three dudes,
course.
which was the most guys they ever sent after McLean at once, was 3 guys. Probably should have sent a few more, but
Right.
anyway, we're past that. Carl, he's like in such a mood to be the only one to kill McLean. And as McLean's having a gun battle with these 2 guys, which I guess are supposed to miss on purpose,
Right.
because God forbid they upset Carl and accidentally shoot McLean. Carl's walking
Right.
along the helipad,
Right.
just taking his sweet old time.
Right.
And he gets to the end of the helipad walkway, and there's McLean right where Carl, I guess, knew he would show up.
Right.
It's just like Carl's got everything under his control. He's thought all this out. He's too cool
Right.
to screw
It
up.
was perfect.
And he aims at him. Like, he gets the jump on him.
Yeah.
Shoots, misses. He has a chance to shoot him in the
Well,
face. Doesn't do it.
Here's my theory about them.
FBI helicopter. They like have him. The helicopter's even still,
Yeah.
and they're aiming at him. And it's like McLean isn't even aware that he's in the sights of somebody.
He's just oh no.
Like, he starts getting shot at. Then he looks at where he's being shot at from. And it's like, oh, I'm being shot at from over there. Better
Yeah.
run this way.
And then he runs and hops off the helipad and is like, I'm the good guys, or I'm with you.
yeah, I'm on your side.
Yeah. There were so many times. This is a nitpicky thing just because it's like the same trick over and over. There were so many times where they set up shots frame wise to have squibs like on the back side of a corner. Like they would show a corner so it looked cool. And like John's here, bad guy's here. Bad guy shoots, misses John by miles and hits the corner of the wall. Squib, sparks fly.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, there's no way. But in John's defense, everybody was holding their guns like this and like Ramboing it.
Firing at the hip.
So it was like there was no aiming at all. Even Carl with his cool gun that they had a whole scene for him to set up, you know, and the 2 guys are like looking at each other like, and then you have that 80s sound effect of like with
Yeah.
a gun getting put together. And then he doesn't even like cite it correctly. He's just like holding it like this. It's like nobody like vaguely trained anybody. It was just like, look as badass as possible, and that's all we want.
Right. These are supposed
And
to
this is
be
what you get.
these are supposed to be expert
Right.
Germans.
Now, in saying all of this, let's rate it.
All right. Alex, for those of you just listening,
So,
we're going to give this movie a rating based on a few categories.
rewatchability, story strength, characters, do you believe it? And that category is kind of up to your interpretation, but just kind of like, could you believe this would happen?
Every movie sets its own boundaries.
Right. In its own
And once it
universe.
establishes those boundaries, it has to stay within them. If it breaks that, then it breaks our believability of
Right.
the world it's made for itself.
And then overall creative ability. And then we will add both of our scores up and see what the Alchemy Point podcast itself scores Die Hard.
All right.
So-
Then shall we go through, starting with rewatchability? How rewatchable is Die Hard? For Alex, it is a 9 out of 10.
I think that's the first 9 I've given
Ooh, ooh,
rewatchability.
ooh.
Just because even though both of us found plenty of things to like pick on, I mean, my goodness, it's Die Hard. I think this movie will live on for a really long time.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a fun movie. Like, it's one of those movies that you could watch over and over. And I don't say that a lot about movies because
Mhm.
most of the time when you watch a movie, it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Die Hard is not one of those movies. It's definitely a movie that you could watch over and over. And I think that's what helps it in the Christmas category because Christmas
yeah.
comes once a year. And if you could watch a movie once a year at Christmas, this could be the movie.
Yeah.
So why not?
The Christmas element definitely helps that rewatchability factor because it just carries so much of that charm and warmth along with it.
Right.
Even though it is an action movie.
Right.
I don't see how I can do anything but give it a 10 because I have consistently watched it every single year, every Christmas. It's like I make it a point. And it's got that heavy nostalgia factor for me as well.
So
Great
we got a 10.
characters. Yeah, and like we spent a little while nitpicking it, but like we've already mentioned before and after our nitpicks, it's because it does everything, so many things right.
Right.
And have already been beaten to death by every YouTuber on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah, we'll go a little deeper than that, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but the rewatchability is definitely strong
So,
for both of us.
what do you think about the story overall? Does it have plot holes? Do you think it was badly written, well written?
I'll
What do
give
you think?
I'll give the story a 7 because it's a simple
It's a lot
premise.
lower than I thought you were going to go, but that's what I was going to go.
Simple premise, simple setup. It doesn't bite off more than it can chew. It paces itself well. It's like if you're talking about like the story of this movie, it's not like one of those tales that I mean, obviously it's a tale that's been retold
Right.
many times, many different ways, and this was kind of like the beginning of that, but the story is still like a fairly simple one. You know, there's not too
doesn't-
many there's not too
Yeah.
many
It doesn't take that many risks.
there's not too
in
many
general.
cogs in the wheel. But it does its simple job well. Not that it was a simple job to make the movie or anything, but
YouTuber guy says he could do a better job.
someone will interpret it that way.
Right.
And you
What do you-
gave it a 7.
Yeah. What do you? And mine's kind of exactly the same way. It's kind of like there was nothing that blew me away about it.
Yeah.
One being it's kind of your like whether people love it or not, it's kind of your typical 80s action movie.
There was baddies in it. He got rid of them, saved the
Yeah,
day.
and very eccentric baddies.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, oh, my neighbor's an awful person. Of course, it's like some guys from overseas that some corporation or entity kicked this guy out because he wasn't, very high in the sky.
Right.
And the plausibility of some of the stuff in the story is very much like very out of this world because and this is why I think like my story score can be taken down a little bit is this movie was set in real world.
Yeah.
So the stuff that happens is very hard to like swallow
Right.
because we're in the real world. We know stuff like this is very out of this world.
Yeah.
What do you think about the characters?
I love the characters in this movie. I'll probably give that a 9. It's just they're just so memorable. You know, like how can you not love Alan Rickman and his accent
Right.
and just McClane being the best McClane he ever was. The everyman caught in an extraordinary situation. The funny fucking police captain, deputy chief, just being as ridiculous as he is. It's just funny to watch that guy completely act like an asshole for no reason and to draw stupid conclusions about everything. And I don't know how he ever expected to resolve this situation with that. I mean, had McClane
With
not
this weird passive aggressive.
yeah, had McClane not been in there picking guys off, I don't know how Dwayne Robinson would have handled it. He probably would have still been trying to get people out of prison
Right.
from the Asian Dawn, whatever he was talking
Asian
about.
Dawn. So I gave it an 8, kind of for the same reasons I docked the story a little bit. To me, it's kind of like these are pretty 80s characters. I don't think they're horribly unique, but I can't say that they're bad or par. I think they did a really good job of kind of taking a formula and making it new, kind of like I talked about with the music and stuff. So I appreciate that about this movie.
Right.
It doesn't get lost in the sea of 80s action. It definitely stands out, and that's why I give it an 8.
Solid hero, solid villain, solid supporting characters.
Right. So next one is, do you believe the story? And this one,
This is gonna be fun.
this is the one I think that's going to be a little bit worse of a rating than the others, because I don't want to give it a 5 because I don't think it's like par for the course, but I am going to give it a 6. Kind of in the same vein as the story as well. This is set in our world, so it's really hard to believe. Just the like we talked about earlier, just the fact that he's like falling from ridiculous heights, like Mission Impossible before Mission Impossible, like doing this stuff. Yeah, I'm sure some people could do it, but you're talking about that like that 1% of people that if they just happen to be in this situation, they could pull it off.
Right.
So that's where it's like, whew, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
So it lands low.
Right. Yeah, there was just too many scenes that had these conveniences or McClane should have been dead. There's no way he could have got out of this situation.
Yep.
So I'm gonna give it a 6 as well. I've seen much worse.
Yeah.
It never crossed the line in the sand where I was just like completely taken out of it or anything, but there was plenty of winces in there where I was just like,
yeah,
okay.
If a movie takes you out of the movie and you can't believe it, then you're dropping like 5 and below, depending on how bad it is.
Yeah. Can be pretty bad sometimes. So this didn't do anything like unforgiving.
Right.
But Jesus, there was certainly a lot to nitpick it about.
It was kind of like you noticed it, but you were okay.
had to
with
kind of
yeah.
overlook it and say, oh, well, maybe there was some element in there. I'm just going to pretend was in there.
Right.
So it makes sense for me. Like
Right.
the fire hose thing didn't flip over the lip of the building because it got hooked on a fucking ladder hanging there
air.
that we didn't see. I don't know.
Right. So
Just invent some stupid reason. It's like these things that are you can pick out that are only on screen or give you the clue for like a second or 2
Right.
seconds that they're there. They're there and then they're gone. But it's
Right.
like if you catch them, it's like, well, that didn't make much sense.
Right. So last but not least, creativity. What do you think?
Okay, creativity. That kind of feels like the story for me in the sense that it was a simple setup and the plot and unfolded from beginning to end in no real kind of like overly creative way, but I think it did its job well. And
Yeah.
for that I'll give it a nice solid 7. Because like this wasn't like a overly creative movie. It was competently done
Right.
in just about every way. And so kudos for that.
So I'm going to fall back to like what I've said the past couple
retreat
things. I think they did a good job with a very specific formula. That's what I'll say. When you were using the same type of formula as everybody else, it's very hard to stand out. And I think they did do that. So it's slightly above par.
I feel like I'm getting a decimal here.
I thought about it, but I'm not. I'll just be honest with myself. So with that, in saying that, I think they did a good job with the same formula as a lot of other movies. But it is still the same formula to me. So when you talk about creativity and like what that means, it's really, really hard for me to be like, oh, this movie was so creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They found creative ways, I think, to get him around the building.
Right.
Like, because you're given this one setting for the most part where everything takes place, this one building, and they had to invent ways to get him up to the roof or sneaking away from this part of the building to get to another part by using like the vents or the vents or the vents or the stairs.
What was that one
or the or standing on the elevator.
The vents.
Yeah, or the vents.
Right.
Let's not forget those.
So, yeah. Overall, we scored a 7.5 out of 10. The weird thing about that score is I could watch this again for sure within probably a couple weeks to a month. And I don't say that a lot because it is a fun movie. It really is. Does everything hold up correctly? Not really.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it has to do that to be a fun movie to watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know probably to a lot of people that's like a weird gray area of like, oh, if it doesn't make sense, you can't have fun with it. Well, I disagree.
Yeah, it's like we can look past certain things. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a movie is a movie.
Right.
And yeah, we're suspending our disbelief, or you're supposed to, right from the get-go anyway.
Right.
And this just has a couple of instances where you have to suspend it just a little bit harder.
Right.
Than other times.
Where it's just a little out of reach.
Where this guy should have been smoked.
Right.
Quite a few times, and where the police, like, look, I know there's good cops and there's bad cops, but all these cops were like seem to be stupid.
Ridiculous, yeah.
It's like they're trying to say all the cops in LA are dumb, and like there's only one smart one from New York.
One New York cop is just brilliant, yeah.
And he found the only good cop in LA being Al.
Was the director in New York?
McClane came from New York, is what.
No, I mean the guy who directed.
Oh.
What's the director's name?
John McTiernan.
Of course, it's John.
so close to John McClane. I wonder if he named him. This comes with a commentary by various cast and crew. Doesn't say who. Oh, there's a commentary by the director and production designer.
Okay. So
Cool. Have to check that out.
So last thing I wanted to talk about real quick.
When they say various cast and crew, I guess that doesn't include Bruce Willis. He's probably sick of this movie.
Right.
He just still does sequels to get a paycheck now. Did you know they used like the building that they used in this movie was like owned by the studio? It was like the studio building. They didn't have anywhere they could find to shoot it, so they just used like the production offices.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it wasn't finished being built yet, just like in the movie. So they just wrote it into the script.
Oh, clever. See, that's pretty creative.
Yeah, it was something like that.
So John, what's his name again? John McTiernan, who directed it, finally weighed in on this whole debacle. And I guess there's a 12-minute clip of McTiernan talking behind the scenes type of a thing. And he says in the interview,
I think he's gonna do like a half-assed kind of to each his own kind of answer.
So McTiernan says in the interview something which is what happens when evil banker gets to do what he wants in the community without George getting in the way to stop it, and it's a clear demonstration of criticism of runaway, unregulated cowboy capitalism that's ever been done in an American movie. So he says he based or had inspiration from a movie before doing this movie, and that movie that he drew inspiration from, take a guess.
Some fucking John Wayne thing.
Right. It's a Wonderful Life. McTiernan said, "We hadn't intended Die Hard to be a Christmas movie, but the joy that came from it is what turned it into a Christmas movie. And that's really the best I can tell you about it."
So he said it. To him, it is a Christmas
he said
movie.
It turned into a Christmas movie. But yes.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. I mean,
there's some correlations between like It's a Wonderful Life and this movie in some way. Unlike Jimmy Stewart's blah blah blah, Bruce Willis's John McClane had a gun to help him deal with evil banker in his life, but McTiernan said he was always clear with the producer Joel Silver about making McClane in the image of George Bailey. I said, okay, if you want me to make this terrorist movie, I want to make it where the hero in the first scene, when the limo driver approaches, that he's never been in a limo before, the hero says, "It's all right, I've never ridden in a limo before." A working class hero. Which is...
yeah. I mean, any other 80s action star would have shown up to the Nakatomi Plaza by getting out of the back of the limo with like two babes around him.
Steven Seagal.
Yeah, and huge muscles. Right. Steven Seagal would have like some jacket on with like a tiger on the back of it.
Kimono.
Yeah, a kimono pajamas and his ponytail. And he'd be throwing the karate chops around at people.
Well, that's it. That's final.
Yeah, that's Die Hard for you.
7.5 Die Hard. I would watch it in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, if you want a good solid action movie, I mean that ranks up there on the leaderboards of good action movies.
Yeah.
Because it does it so well and so competently, and it's got great characters and memorable lines.
Right.
and sets the bar really high as like a standard to how to make good action movies and how to
Right.
make characters that are memorable. And
Yeah.
even if it's supporting characters, like if they don't have a lot to say or do in the movie, like for the time that they're in there, like
They all work really well.
yeah, they're another support beam
Right.
to hold the thing up. And I don't think it really overstays its welcome too long with any of its characters or any of its scenes. For the most part, could make an argument for a couple of little things, but all in
Yeah.
all, it flows really good and it's always a good time.
Yeah.
And I think deserves to be watched every Christmas
Because it's a Christmas movie.
because to us it is. And if it's not for you, good for you.
Well, with that being said, go check us out on Anchor, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the stuff. Send us a message. Tell us what you would like us to watch next, and we'll do it. Tell us something to talk about, and we'll talk about it. But with that, I guess that's it.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Okay.
You're in shit. I think what you need to
Him that's right. You know, freaking.
no, what's this thing?
But I've had it half on this. Oh,
You're out your desk. You'll see it.